I'm the breadwinner with my ample book royalties.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just pouring in the checks.
Oh yeah. All dollars of it. Tens of dollars.
Accomplishments and accomplices.
Yes.
You brought a copy?
I did.
Do we get to keep that copy?
No, this is just a display copy.
You can buy this.
I carry it with me everywhere, and then I take it with me everywhere. No, it's for you.
That's cool. Is it safe for like a 13-year-old to read?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fairly clean. The only thing that your 13-year-old might struggle with is that there are a lot of vocab words. Yeah, some of the feedback that I got was like, you use a lot of different words. I was like, thank you. And they were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I learned some new words just kind of researching for this podcast, like Regency era and Bridgerton. Oh. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our 12-year-old, she's like really, really well read and really into vocab books. So I think she'll be good.
She'll love it.
This is nice. We haven't been in the house. I like the walkthroughs, like the cat and stuff. You've brought the podcast back in the house. So
you're welcome.
Like, for Grace, we're doing back in the original location.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah, you were in like a library?
Yeah, we do the library mostly. Like it was my kids are home all summer. I got really excited about the podcast this summer and did way too many. And there was one time where we finished and the family was like had been waiting on the porch and one of my kids had been like not so I was like, we'll go to the library for a while. But now they're back in school.
Perfect.
But yeah, the book. Tell me about the book. Like, how long did it take you to write a whole book?
Well, the first draft was kind of like laying an egg. It took 3 months of just like, it just felt like it was just like coming out of my body in like a very like manic process.
Yeah.
And then it took 3 years to get it in shape for other people to be able to read without thinking that I was slightly insane. So that was that process. But yeah, it was not the book I expected to write for my first novel. Writing a novel was always something I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing I'll do one day. Mm-hmm. And then it was a thing that I did one day, and then the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that for about 3 months.
That's the best. I love the manic state of the hard part for me is going back and punching it up and making it not be just a raw black kind of thing. Yeah. My father accuses me of living on flashy first drafts. Yeah. And that's absolutely true. I've built my entire career on flashy first drafts. Yeah, that's what this is. It's just, there's no other one.
Yeah, and it's like, it's
raw.
Good enough. Yeah. It's good enough. For 99% of the time, no one can tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a longer book, there was more to work on. And taking the time with it, it really let me work on it in ways that I didn't anticipate. Like I really got to know my characters a lot better, and I found out stuff about the story as I was refining it. I was like, oh, that's why that happened. And you'd think that I would have known that the whole time because all of these people are not real and they live inside my head, but I apparently can keep secrets from myself just as well. I
mean, that seems real to me, like that there are all these different sides of you or people you've known. I don't know. That's how I see it. Like, you write a song and you're like, oh, that's not about me. But then years later, you're like, no, that's about a part of me or some conflict in me. The characters, I don't know if that resonates. But
no, it definitely does. And actually, I've been super curious. I've been revisiting some of your music recently. And I never asked you, like, when we were hanging out, like, all the time, like, are you, like, a Taylor Swift sort of autobiographical songwriter? Are you, like, a Bob Dylan, like, I'm just putting words together and we'll see how it goes kind of guy? Like, how would you describe your songwriting?
Oh, man, I think they're one and the same. I think that, like, even if you try to be word salad or random, like, I don't think people can truly be random. Like, even if you're just like opening a book and randomly pulling words out, that's still reflective on something that's happening, like even subconsciously. So they're all about me. That's what I think. I think everything you write, every picture you draw is a self-portrait. Everything you say, every movie that you like is because it's about you. That's my theory, is that like
the whole universe exists for you.
Yeah, we're all narcissists, and then we only are interested in things that are about us, whether it's, literally or on some level, and just embrace that.
I buy into that 100%. Yeah, that makes sense to me also. Have you ever written a song and then revisited it later and found that it was about something that had not happened yet?
Oh yeah, like always. I mean, that's like that has happened so much that's why I'm so addicted to it. Is that it's like, yeah, there's something like because I never try to write about myself. I never try to write anything. It's just like what you're saying, that manic state of it's like pouring out, and you're like, at this point, I'm like, I'm onto something, and then years later, I'm like, that's exactly what was about to happen, or so it's something that like a relationship was going to end, but there's like 6 months before, and it's all there written, but I didn't know, and I love that. It's like you're tapping into some other space-time futuristic dimension or something.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Have you found that I mean, I imagine that's kind of less true for your stand-up comedy. It would be pretty weird if you got up on stage and you did a whole monologue, and then 6 months later you were like, and then it came true.
I want to get there. I feel like I've been doing stand-up for like 9 years now, so I think I'm not advanced enough at it yet to do that. But I want it to be more like that, where I can trust the dream state, the subconscious. Like when I write songs now, it's just like, I don't know, like when you wrote that, you've been writing on it like for a long time, so you maybe there's more trust in it. Whereas like when you're up in front of a bunch of people, just trying to like trust that you can just start saying something you haven't finished thinking yet, and that you're not going to get canceled or something bad's not going to happen. Like I'm still trying to get to that, like the trust aspect of it. But then I think maybe I could do that with jokes, like that thing where you predict the future, or I don't know, slip into magical.
I support you in that ambition. If you do start to predict the future in your stand-up comedy, like, maybe call some people about that. That could be, I feel like that has other applications.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there could probably be better things.
The Department of Defense is going to want to know.
Yeah. So that's cool. So was that like during COVID that you did the 3 months of like the...
Yeah, it was 2021, I guess, in December. So...
and that's when you started your like Instagram too, is the cottagecore thing. I don't know if you're still calling it that, but
I'm still. It's still the best word that describes everything that I love.
So something about that time period where you really kind of like figured out these.
Oh my God! It was just one thing after the other. So like 2020 in like February, I discovered the word cottagecore, and I'm like, oh, well, there's a word for everything that I love, and there are other people that love this too. This is insane. The scales have fallen from my eyes. Like I have language and community and inspiration. I was just like looking at my phone like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. This is everything. Yeah. And I ran downstairs and I showed it to my husband, and I was like, you need to buy a camera and you need to learn how to use it, because I want to make art that makes other people feel the way I feel when I look at this art.
Oh, hell yeah. So he's your photographer? Your husband? Oh, that's cool. He's good.
Thanks. Yeah. He learned because I was like, you got to learn how to do this. And he was like, okay.
He didn't need arm twisting?
No. He's very supportive. And it was early 2020, and I think we were all looking for new hobbies. It was like, well, what else is going on? So I started that, really like, I don't know, healed a lot of my inner child through that process, I think, and like became very honest with myself about like the things that I love, and stopped trying to give a shit about anything else. Yeah. I also got very existentially anxious for, I don't know, whatever reason. Who can remember?
During
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? For some strange reason, I found myself unable to consume the raw, unfiltered internet of things, and I retreated into like a little bit of magical realism, and I only read 19th century literature.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be alone with my thoughts. So I was listening to Jane Austen audiobooks on repeat, full volume, around the house, basically 18 hours a day.
Just full submersion.
Yeah. Just deep
like putting
in
on the clothes, like listening to the...
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my parents thought I was having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
I don't know. It worked out.
That's a good version of it, I think.
Yeah, I think so
you gotta
too.
have them.
It's like our daughter has developed a very strange and intense interest in baskets. What do we do about that? Nothing. It's fine. It's like a whole group of other internet people who are like, I also love baskets. Have you seen frogs wearing hats? And I'm like, I love frogs wearing hats. I found my people. So started my cottagecore Instagram account. Then the company that I was working for doing marketing got acquired by a much larger company that I did not want to work for. And I was like, well, gosh, I've got some money from this acquisition. Maybe at this point it was like 2022.
Yeah.
There was just like 2 years of intense Jane Austen-ry. I was like, let's go to LA and I'll just like see about writing for television.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got a place in LA for like 2 months. Ryan, I don't know if you know this. It's really hard to break into show business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've given up on it. I'm enjoying just being a loser. Like being on the outskirts of it. I think it's more interesting now. It's like the post-Tiger King era of...
Yeah. Just being yourself. Just chasing your own passion.
Yeah.
And sooner or later... Netflix will come to you or they won't. Yeah. And it's probably for the best.
Yeah, don't need them.
Yeah. So we like go to LA and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm going to work in television. We're in Los Angeles for 5 days. And I'm like, oh, I could never live here. I hate it here. Yeah. This is awful. The tap water, you can't drink it. The sun, it's too bright. And all of the people kind of suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty, I don't know. So... we stayed out our little sublet lease, and then we were driving back up to Seattle to like resume our lives. And I'm standing like looking out on a cliffside on the Oregon coast, consuming a legal recreational substance. And
this is the West Coast. That could be anything.
Yeah. So what was it? Who knows? And I just have this like really intense vision of the entire narrative of my book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It just like, it just lands on me.
I love how it's post LA too. It's like,
oh yeah. Well, I mean,
let's go back to when there wasn't LA.
Yeah. Just, you've taken your dream out behind the barn and shot it like Old Yeller. Like, what are you going to do next? Oh, here. Like a vision appears.
I like how your references are even Old Yeller. I know what that is, but
yeah. Everybody knows Old Yeller. It's
do
like
people know? Do millennials know Old Yeller?
God, yes. My 4th grade teacher would only read us dead dog books. That was like our entire theme for 4th grade was like North Carolina state history and like dead dog books, like Where the Red Fern Grows, Sounder, Old Yeller, Because of Winn-Dixie.
Yeah.
Black Beauty was in there too. Shiloh, yes. Oh my God.
I was trying to add one. So badly.
They all blend together. Just tons of dead dog stories. And she
I don't know if Shiloh dies in that. I had never finished it. My kid got too sad.
Yeah. So probably yes.
Probably yeah.
Yeah, Mrs. Shandoval, she would read aloud to us for like 15 minutes after lunch every day. And all of these books end the same way, with some variations on the theme of the dog dies. Right. Spoiler alert. And she would start crying, as she's like getting to the last chapters, and she would just hand the book to the nearest kid, and then we would like pass it around, reading aloud, and just slowly like breaking
the tears
down.
of every child.
Oh yeah, it was a huge like.
That sounds so wholesome and wonderful.
Sure,
everyone cries on the dead dog book?
Yeah, like multiple times throughout the year.
Rural
just
North Carolina?
just collective sobbing of children. I don't know what her deal was.
So maybe it is almost like you grew up in the 19th century. That sounds like a 19th century school.
A lot of my childhood was very of another time. You know, in high school, one of my best friends had horses, and so we would just take the horses out, and like she lived like back out in like Crabtree. I don't even know if you know where that is.
I do not.
Yeah, it's just like a holler back and beyond. And we would just take the horses out and then just go up all these like old logging roads, like getting into other people's property, walking around. We'd find like old home sites where, you know, there would just be like a pile of stones and like an old like chimney.
Yeah.
I don't know if that childhood exists at all anymore. Just like, oh yeah, unsupervised horseback riding in rural, like, I don't know but that was my experience.
Is that kind of like when you have the vision of your book, or you're, you know, getting dressed up in the cottagecore stuff? Is it kind of like transport you? Is it sort of like trying to like reconnect with that sense of wonder?
I've never thought about it that way. I think for a long time, my parents were like very progressive, like thoughtful people who were very like, before there was even a word for this, they were like gender neutral styles of parenting, where it was like, I wasn't allowed to have like baby dolls or Barbie dolls because they felt like that was like, a bad influence somehow. And so it was like Tinker Toys and like Lincoln Logs and like a lot of like STEM stuff. And unfortunately for them, like I arrived into this world just like femme and fabulous. Like all I wanted to do was wear princess dresses and put on makeup. And like they have yet to figure out like where that came from. So
yeah, it's like we've found that with our kids too, that like the Disney princess phase might come not because of anything that you steered them towards, or at least not knowingly.
Yeah. It just like children are people too, as it turns out, and they have things that they like. So yeah, I feel like a lot of my childhood, you know, I wasn't allowed to wear makeup, and I wasn't I had really short hair. I was obsessed with the Beatles in like 4th grade. And so I got a bowl cut.
Yeah.
It made me very popular.
Yeah.
I can assure you. Yeah. It went over real big. No.
What were other kids into at that time? Would this have been like
Spice Girls?
Yeah. Okay.
Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was late 90s, early 2000s. Cargo pants, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I started collecting vintage clothes when I was like 12. And yeah, I don't know. All of the cottagecore stuff just really does feel like it's been me coming back to myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially in high school, I feel like I was just like trying really hard, very unsuccessfully, to be like, I'm a normal person who likes normal things, like whatever you guys like, I probably like that too. Definitely. If you could just tell me what that is, please.
Yeah. This sounds like my 12-year-old who just like, this is 7th grade this year. And it's just like, yeah, she's just not interested in having a phone and being on the threads and doing any of that bullshit. And it's just like,
great.
Yeah, just wants to read like Little Women and do that sort of thing. And it's like, I think there's like a loneliness about it, but it's also like, good for you, you know?
Yeah, no,
like,
she's just going to grow up to be a cottagecore girl, and it'll work out fine.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, in like
you
20 years, she's going to be happy.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like, well, you're in 7th grade. Like, it's supposed to, you know, everyone's always like,
oh, middle school's the
get ready for middle
worst.
school. It sucks. It's like, well, this is, now it's happening now. So this is, you know, try and like validate it and not dismiss it, but also be like, no one ever told me that it's supposed to feel that way, and it's okay.
Yeah. And it like middle school just sucks for absolutely everyone. Your brain is just a pile of like chemicals and hormones and soup, and you know, your thoughts and feelings don't make sense to yourself because they literally don't make sense.
Yeah.
So just ride that one out.
Yeah.
She's into Little Women. That's awesome.
Yeah, you kind of I've been reading the 19th century literature, but I need to get into.
You said you were really into the
ladies.
Russians.
I've been reading the Russian dudes.
Yeah.
So it's a very specific like male Russian voice. So I was preparing for this. I'm like, yeah, I need to like revisit like Bronte and Jane Austen now, because I was hit with some of that stuff when I was a kid, but I wasn't ready for it. I could not handle it. I couldn't even. My brain was so. I can only now like really slowly even try to read stuff like that. I mean, it's amazing when like my kid, she can like read that stuff now. I'm like, that's awesome. But
in many ways, I think that it's easier for children to understand, or young people to literal children to understand antiquated literature, because they recognize kind of the heart of the story, the emotional stuff, and they just kind of go with the social customs, because for them, like, that's their whole life anyways. They're like, I guess this is what we do.
Yeah.
I guess this is what these people do.
I don't get to decide. I don't get to design my...
Yeah, and like nothing feels weird to them because everything's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's true. You haven't like gotten all rigid and formed and it should be like this. It seems like maybe there's something about I don't know if Regency is the word, but like when people would go all out for a party and like that, I would imagine that's something that interests you.
Oh, definitely.
Like there's really no modern equivalent of...
I mean, they're definitely...
Like reenactments, you mean? Or
oh, yeah, the reenactments for sure. But like, I think the thing that like I try and connect with, especially in my writing about that time period, is that like, it's actually not that different. I mean, we have different sort of customs and cultures, but Regency people were like just as ridiculous, like just as self-absorbed, just as horny as everybody else, just like making a fool of themselves. And yeah, I think maybe young people can relate to 19th century literature, and maybe especially British literature, is because like a lot of the conflict comes from people not being able to say what they mean. And like, if that's not a description of life as a middle schooler, like I don't know what is, where it's just like, I have all these feelings and I'm not allowed to talk about them for some reason. And like, I don't have the language for this, or like I tried and it came out wrong and now everyone's mad at me.
Yeah.
Like that's a very like real experience for them. And I feel like, yeah, as adults, it's like, well, why don't you just, say like, hey, your dad said this like weird thing to me, but I think we should get married. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you think it's different now as far as like, like just class and customs and what you're allowed to... Like I don't know. It's interesting reading these like the old Russian books, because you have like you have like the servants and you have the people who are...
all Russian literature, as far as I can tell, is... and I remember realizing this while reading Anna Karenina, which I went into being like, yes, Anna Karenina, famous tragic
That's
love
my next
story.
One queued up.
Oh, well, spoiler alert. It's not actually a tragic love story at all. It is a long ass essay about like, what is the responsibility of Russian nobility to their serfs in the face of the mechanization and industrialization of farming practices. And just, also there's a lady, her name's Anna.
Yeah.
Whatever. She's sad.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it is just like, but if we introduce these agricultural practices, we're going to be putting people out of work. And if they don't have work, are their minds flexible enough to handle this?
Yeah.
Are poor people? Tune in, next week as we unpack this further.
Yeah, it's so foreign to me because it's just not the culture I've grown up in. But yeah. It's almost like a beehive or something though, where you like accept you're down here, you're up here. Like I wonder if there is some sense of peace in that, because you're not trying to... It's kind of exhausting to try to... I'm always trying to break out of who I am and become some new person, but sometimes I'm like, maybe if you're just like, this is what you got to be.
Well, I think America was kind of founded on that notion of a classless society.
Right.
And, whether or not we've succeeded in that, I think is a much bigger question than what we're going to answer in this podcast today.
Yeah.
Did you just pull out a second mug of tea? Was that, you just had that in the hopper the whole time?
Yeah, I have a water here too. I like just drink.
Wow.
I don't drink alcohol anymore, but I do like to
very hydrated.
Have a drink, stay hydrated.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's something about that the time period. I don't know. I guess I've just always heard that the Russian novels, there's something about them where they're like, so as a person that tries to be a writer, I'm like, I'm going to spend a few years trying to read these. I don't necessarily think they're the best.
Oh, they're super interesting.
Like they might help me just be a better writer, But yeah, it's interesting that you're like, I read War and Peace, and it's the same 2 decades that you're like, when I was researching your stuff, like the Regency, Bridgerton stuff, it's like that very specific Napoleonic.
Yes, the Napoleonic Wars, but in Russia.
1800s, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like your golden era? I mean, would you have actually wanted to live then, or is it more like you like living now and just being...
I mean,
there's something there for you.
I love antibiotics. Like, I'm a big fan of a lot of modern convenience. For me, the Regency era is nice because train travel hasn't been invented yet. So it takes a really long time to get anywhere, which means like if you're going somewhere, you're staying there. And I love the like narrative traps that you can set for your characters as a result. So that's nice. Also, people have started bathing every day. That's a very recent addition
it's
to
like as far back as you can go before it's just real
and
stinky.
then it's just like no. Like we're really into it. This guy Beau Brummel comes along and he's like, you guys, what if every day we're bathing? And everyone's like, this dude's fucking crazy. But all the ladies seem to love him. Why? I don't know. Let's copy everything that he does and invent modern menswear. So, that for me is kind of the sweet spot narratively. I could go into some of the broader, like, socio-political reasons that I think the Regency is interesting. Namely, England is like watching across the channel as the French aristocracy is being dragged from their homes and beheaded in the streets by the thousands. Yeah. And the rich people in England are like, we did not know that poor people could do that.
Yeah.
How do we prevent that from happening here? And there's just this burst of kind of like altruistic, paternalistic, like, social progress where they're like, well, we need to make the lives of these poor people better so that they don't murder us and our children.
Yeah.
And it ushers in a really like...
I think we should still be thinking about that.
I think we should be. I think, it's a good strategy.
They're going to come for you if you don't.
Yeah. We can learn a lot from history. Yeah. It doesn't always repeat itself, but it does rhyme.
That's interesting what you said about that, because like Tolstoy was saying, there's the revolution in the United States, and then it just like the ideas like sloshed back, and they went from France all the way to like Russia. And there was just all that devastation, and then they sloshed back again. And that's like, in one way of looking at it, like aliens could just kind of see the ideas get like scattered like seeds one way, and then the other and slosh back, and then it's like forever different.
And the English people are just looking at it like, fuck.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. You also have a big like population boom at that time, thanks to like the industrialization and like modernization of farming practices. So you have enough food finally so that people aren't just like starving.
Yeah.
And that leads to an excess of labor. And so then you have this big like it's like the lead up to the Industrial Revolution, which is really about like the steam engine really like kicks off like mechanization, but you have a lot of craftspeople. So everybody's like making stuff. The quality of life for the average person goes up. The middle class springs into existence. Is this a comedy podcast?
No, it's not just a comedy. Not anymore. That was the first 50 episodes.
Oh, okay.
Now I got a scientist coming on.
Hard pivot to Russian history and a 19th century literature.
No, I mean, I think about this stuff all the time. I think about the Industrial Revolution as being the beginning of the end.
Who doesn't?
Overpopulation. I mean, that's the thing about like medicine and stuff, is I think overpopulation is our biggest problem as I see it. Too many people. It's like we're doubling in size, and it gets real scary when there's just not enough resources. And and the environment's all fucked up.
Yeah. Well, the overpopulation didn't help with that.
Yeah.
So what do you think we should do about that, Ryan? Just real quick, what do you think we should do with all the excess people
legalize
in the world?
abortion, again, for sure.
Okay.
and then incentivize it so you can, it's $1,000 not to keep it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I don't have any solutions
that's
besides
okay.
those, but I think that you should definitely not need to have a kid.
I'm doing my part.
Yeah. I was trying to talk about that, how like if you're anti-abortion, then you just live in you don't have enough homeless people in your city. I don't know, it's a thin line between being concerned and sounding like Hitler, you know what I mean? Because certainly everybody that's alive now is cool, and no one should ever die that's already been born. See, now it's back to stand up again. Now it's like I'm getting myself canceled by trying to work my way through. This is what we were talking about as far as like being up on stage and trying to do an idea that I'm not sure where it's going to lead.
I think it's working out great.
And you're just trying to see. And then Asheville's a very politically correct kind of woke, town. So trying to like explore ideas like that. And then even if at the end of it, you did accidentally sound a little like Hitler, you have enough trust in the room for people to know you're not actually.
You trust your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they trust you, or you're not just like, oh, you don't have that moment where you signal to them that you weren't confident enough to try,
So you think that's what Hitler had going for him, was like a lot of confidence?
I think he was pretty confident.
I think so too. I mean,
great orator, apparently.
That's what they say. So you think if you had enough confidence, you could be Hitler? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to, for the first time in this podcast history, we're going to have to cut all of this.
No, I mean, these are the fun spaces. I mean, I guess it's I don't know. I don't have any answers for that, but I do worry about things like overpopulation because I have kids now. It's just like, I think
you're part of the problem.
I only know a few things, but I can see patterns very clearly, and it's just like, if you looked at a chart of the population, how it's like exponential.
Yeah.
It's like it just is doubling. So it's like, you can't just double. I mean, at some point you have to be like,
they can, and they did
1 billion or whatever and just stay there. Yeah, but it's not a sustainable curve, and I don't want anybody to,
have any more kids now that you've had yours.
Yeah, I mean, if you have 2 or less, that solves the problem. I had 2 people, 2 kids. That's even, So I don't know. We should probably cut this part out. This is.
I'm sorry. This has taken such a weird turn.
No, I mean, this is what you were saying about the rough draft of the book and then trying to punch it up. Like, this is all the messy stuff, too.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. There's, like, coherent parts where we're, like, and then it just drifts into... And that's, I don't know. It's like when I record music now, I used to, like, cut it out and fix it and make it perfect. And now I'm like, where the band just falls apart and somebody's out of tune for a while and then it comes back in. It's kind of more interesting to me than it just being good the whole time. So this is... like a part where it's,
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think everyone loves music that's not that great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always, because it makes you feel like you could do it. That's how I feel when I read other people's really bad books.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of them because self-publishing is super easy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, I could do better than that.
Yeah. It's inspiring.
Yeah. For a long time, I lived with like, I don't know. I mean, going to school for creative writing, you've got a program where everyone thinks that, they're going to write the next great American novel.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, no.
When was the last great one? Like, who's?
Oh, I mean, I think that...
are there good ones coming out still?
Yeah, I really liked Tommy Orange. There, maybe a third there. Maybe it's just there. There. An indeterminate number of theirs, THERE.
Okay.
That's an important specification because there are a number of theirs. That one I felt was like, oh, wow. I really liked The Overstory. That was the last book that like really, I feel like changed me.
Is that the one about trees?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I heard, pretty depressing.
Man. Oh,
yeah.
I finished that book and was like, okay, how do I fund eco-terrorism directly?
Yeah.
Like, who do I give money to blow up logging operations?
See, the ones that are so dismal like that, like...
Oh, but it's not dismal.
Oh, is it not? There's some hope in there?
Yeah, okay. Eco-terrorism. You're like, I believe in this.
Okay, so I'm Hitler, you're an eco-terrorist. We're both canceled.
Great. You have to be someone to get canceled. Yeah. I welcome cancellation.
Yeah.
I don't. Please don't cancel
this podcast needs a cancellation bump, you know. It could get up to...
Yeah. Oh my gosh. A little bit of controversy. Yeah. Local stand-up comedian and cottagecore princess endorse Hitler on controversial podcast episode. We're gonna have to cut all of this.
I used AI for a minute to cut out my reels, and AI would zoom in on. It would find this moment because it would try to do the clickbaitiest thing, and so I was like, oh, it's like, why cut up your own reels? AI could do it, and it just looks for like if we talk about anything controversial, which is not what I. If you listen to the whole thing, you deserve this section. But I hand cut them because it's like, you know, it's like good French fries. You know, it's got to be like your own.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that like the default setting is to exploit the most upsetting parts of the conversation as you're
AI
like,
doesn't
check
have
out this
taste.
1 minute. Yeah.
That people ask me a lot if I'm worried about AI as a writer and as someone who has made a living writing. And like, no, I'm not worried.
Yeah. Well, they can't write novels. Like you were talking about like bad writers, and like with music, you can make a perfect sounding piece of music with no skill. I mean, it might not be like the song might not be well written, but it's like it'll be in tune and in time and all that.
Yeah, sure.
Which is why I think when the band falls apart, it's like really human, and there's something like more compelling. And with conversations like this, like after watching the news, and it's like perfect. It's kind of interesting to see people get embarrassed and fumble. Like that to me, that's when a comedy set gets really interesting is not when the special's being filmed, but on the way there, where there are these like pitfalls and these mistakes. That's like the real human
Well, not
shit.
to bring it back to the Industrial Revolution, but here I go. The pendulum swing when the Industrial Revolution really was hitting, you know, it was like, oh, we figured, you know, it used to be that like, if you needed a chair, you went to like your local chair guy and he'd be like, yeah, I can get you a chair in like 6 months.
You go to Roger Chairman.
Yeah. You know, the chair guy and Sons.
And he'd be like, that'll be $1,200. It'll take me.
Yeah. And it'll take me 1,000,000 years because I'm just one guy and I got to go chop down a tree to build you a chair. And then the Industrial Revolution happens and it's like, we can make like 500 chairs in a day because we've just got a factory line going with these lathe machines or whatever. And then the cultural pendulum swing of that was the arts and crafts movement, which was like rich people being like, yeah, but I don't want a factory chair. Yeah. I want like a guy who's going to like make me like one chair and he's going to like go to the forest and like cut down a single tree for it.
Yeah.
So I feel like the same thing is going to happen in...
You can feel the suffering from a poor person. Like it feels better to sit in something that's been...
Well, no, I mean, because they were elevating these artists where they're like, he's a true craftsman. And it's like, that's just the chair guy from earlier. Like you put him out of a job with your
he's
chair
like an
factory,
artisan. He's like
but now he's like the last guy who knows how to make a chair from scratch.
He's like the TikTok blacksmith with the tattoos that lives in Portland.
Yes, yeah, I know that guy. Or not, I don't know. There are like 1 million of those guys in Portland. I feel like the cultural pendulum is swinging back to. We want that insight into the artistic process because it's so easy to just, you know, you're like, I want a picture of a cat riding a unicorn while flying on top of a frog, and it needs to, you know, be in these colors and in this style. And it's like, boop, done.
You mean like AI could just...
Yeah. And so when we think about like the art that we want to bring into our lives and our home, we want that human touch.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, culturally, that's kind of like where things are going. It's going to be an emphasis on the handmade and the imperfect. So
we do, but do you think like most people give a shit about that? Like,
well, do I give a shit about most people?
No.
Yeah, like people with taste.
Yeah, I mean for sure. I'm the same way. It's like it's, but then I'm like, you know, I live in this little bubble of. And I don't even really know the answer. I'm like, what do most people, you know, like I'll do comedy here and then I'll go like 30 minutes out to a rural place. I'll be like, oh yeah, like I'm a patronizing gay liberal to these people. None of this stuff, they don't like any of it, you know, whereas I thought I was like, I know how people are, and I can make people...
I'm a cool dad. I have relatable experiences.
Yeah.
Anybody else's kid have a soy allergy?
Yeah, exactly.
You know how you go into classrooms and there are all these organic blocks? What's up with that? Yeah.
But yeah, the humanity of it, I don't know. I'm really interested in, like, this is like the most raw thing I've ever done. And I think it's like the most human too, because it is just like a long, uncut human thing. And to me, it's like, I don't know, even podcasts that are like more edited to me are less interesting. I think my tastes are just getting warped because after like decades of just seeing things, you kind of just get more like outsider art interests you more than insider art when you've just seen it done inside again and again and again. And now it's like when there's variations on the usual patterns, that's what makes me.
So I wanted to ask you kind of about, when we met, the Asheville stand-up scene.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't even call it a scene. It was just Tuesdays at the Hangar.
Yeah.
So you've really seen the stand-up scene in Asheville kind of come up out of nothing. Do you feel like that has given you insight into stand-up at all? Are there any moments from that where you were like, whoa, there's like a thing that's happening here and I'm part of it? Like, what has that been like?
I wanted to talk about this because you were there for like the first.
Oh, yeah.
How long? Like, did you make it? You were there from like the first years, right?
I mean, I was at the Hangar on, I think it was like Tuesdays or Thursdays.
Yeah. So that's like, those are the legendary times that we talk about sometimes on here, and I think that's another side effect of this. We're documenting the oral history of Asheville comedy.
That's what this is. That's great.
It's a lot of things.
Yeah,
that's definitely one of them.
I love that.
Like we got Carrie Goff and Petey and Cody on here, so that's interesting because these folks now, the post-pandemic wave, like they don't even know any of that. So I came in, I think, at a really good time because I went and saw it at Athena's. Probably like 14 years ago, whenever that was. And it was like, that night it was just like, whoa, this is, there wasn't really any like jokes that were good. It was just like a really rough scene. But then like 9 years ago, Tom Peters was running the auditorium mic on Tuesdays and I knew him. And I came back out to finally try it. And there were like a lot of really strong comics because at that point there had been people that had been doing it for 5 years. So I had the benefit of coming in and seeing people that had figured out how to get it, like dial a room in and do jokes. So it was, I think, a lot easier for me probably than like, I mean, it's maybe arguably more exciting to like try to bring it out of the dirt, out of nothing.
So you don't consider yourself like an originator?
No, I don't. I really don't.
Grandfather of this scene.
I love humility, and I love like when I have on like Petey and Cody and stuff. It's definitely like, hey, you guys are the ones that you guys started this. So, I mean, compared to 90% of the people in the scene, I've been around a lot longer. But I like being humbled. I like being like if I ever became the most senior comic in the scene, it's like, God help us all. Like I should leave, I want there to be people that I see as
you are officially not running for king of Asheville comedy.
No, and I've seen the various people wear that crown over the years, and it can go a lot of different ways.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yeah, and who becomes like a complete like asshole mad with power when they're on top, and who like is a
benevolent dictator.
That was exactly the words I was looking for. Benevolent dictator. I think Cody does a good job of like being a benevolent dictator.
Yeah, is Cody the king these days? Say it right now. Tell me, rank all of the comedians right now.
Oh man!
In order of power, not quality.
He would be in the running. I would put probably up in that top 5-ish. I would put Hillary and Petey as well. I should just stop there. Before.
Yeah. Okay. Top 3.
I hear that people search for their names.
Oh, they just like forward through them?
Yeah, they just
that
search
really
for
comes
the
back to what you said about everyone being a narcissist.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's especially true of comedians. Like nobody like grabs a microphone, gets up on stage and is like, hey, everybody listen to me. If they're not like, I'm pretty cool and I have some thoughts that you should hear about because they're mine.
Yeah, I know. And I'm trying to reconcile that like with getting older and like, I think there are some noble things in it, like trying to, like one of the things I want to be able to do is like make both political sides laugh, like that would be my goal, would be eventually to be in a room where
you want to heal the world with your comedy.
Exactly. Or at least just great. For a fucking hour we can, just sit there and be like, we agree on 90% of shit. So it's like, and laugh about stuff. And so that's, there are things, but yeah, at the end of the day, it is me being like, I did that. There is some level.
Well, and you've been a performer before you were a stand-up comedian. You've been getting on stage.
Yeah,
You've been performing
Yeah.
music. You've been asking people to look at you. What do you think that's about?
Yeah. I don't know.
What happened
what
in
do
your
you get from it?
childhood? What's that about?
Middle child.
There it is.
Yeah.
Case closed.
That's the short answer. I don't know. I don't know if I ever really wanted to get girls with music or not. I think I want to just be those people. They just I would just feel so much when I would listen to songs. And when I started figuring them out and I could do my own shitty version, I was all I wanted to do is spend 8 hours in the room just obsessed. I kind of had this vision in my mind of it, and it was just, and then I think it just kept getting distilled down, and stand up is just you're just a person with a stool and a microphone. It's a song with nothing else. It's almost just distilling it down, music down to it's just rhythm, tone, ideas. No fucking, you don't wear a thing that you're hiding behind. It's just, I don't know if there's any other thing. Podcasting might be the next thing. This is
podcasting
I didn't even have ideas.
Podcasting is stand-up comedy in the absence of an audience and with the ability to edit.
Yeah.
And whether or not you use that is, I don't know.
I try not to. Every now and then
I know, but really, really, dude, I don't.
Did it feel like it was bad to you? Are you being serious?
I mean,
I don't think that
I have a very diverse audience.
Yeah.
Of teenage girls and sad dads.
Okay.
I can't even say that.
Are you seriously concerned about the?
I present a very wholesome figure on the internet. That is, I contain multitudes. Yeah. There's a lot to me.
I really can't tell if you're joking right now or not.
I mean, am I? I can't tell if I'm joking or not. I don't know. I think I'd like to listen back to what I said to make sure that it wasn't super egregious.
I think it was more me just kind of dipping my toe in a little Hitler. I don't think you.
Anytime Hitler comes up, it's let's review the tape.
What was your thing again? I can't even remember. Was there something?
I think I was just provoking you a little bit.
Yeah.
So I probably came out being fine.
Yeah. So I think
canceled
that's
this guy.
Yeah.
I am still very wholesome.
Yeah. I think you come off that way.
It's an effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself to be a wholesome person?
No.
No?
No. I will not elaborate on that.
Is that what all the old cloaks are? Is trying to hide the
Absolutely.
demon?
Absolutely.
Put the demon in a...
My friends, my close friends are so I started my cottagecore Instagram account and I was I'm going to be so sneaky. I'm going to start this account. Nobody's going to know it's me. And I'll make a new account. It won't be associated with me. And I'll just sneaky, be anonymous on the internet. Isn't that what everyone's talking about? Oh, it's so anonymous on the internet. Instagram was cool. What if we show this account to literally every single person you've ever met, all of your family and your coworkers on the first day that you make it?
Yeah.
Probably because I set it up wrong. That was probably user error. That's okay.
That's a common story in biographies, though. When you do the thing that you don't, when you're just look at me, and that's your intention, it's harder. But when you're kind of not wanting,
I was I'll just be this secret cottage princess.
That's the energy that people really get attracted by.
Yeah, and then Instagram had other plans for me, and I had a real moment where I was this is a terrible idea. Oh my God, everyone's going to know. And Kevin was no one even notices. Who's even on Instagram?
Yeah.
Nobody pays attention to that. And then the next day I was in a work meeting and my manager was I saw your new Instagram account. That's so cool. Where did you do that? That's what is cottagecore? That's so neat. And I was everybody's being real cool about this. I don't like it.
Is this 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
So what's it like now? Is it just, was it a spike and now it's just, or do you still get, has your feelings changed about it? Have people changed how much they...
I felt super weird about it at first. I had a lot of shame, and I also kind of
because of narcissism or what?
I was raised in a culture that was don't draw attention to yourself, and especially
I have that too.
Don't draw attention to yourself, and especially not for something as shallow and superficial as your looks and your clothes.
Yeah.
And so I kind of packaged it as I'm just doing a bit, you guys. It's just it's just this haha, it's so funny. But the joke's on me because it's my real life now. Like it's taken over everything, and it is 100% who I am, and is just the most honest I've ever been.
Yeah.
But I was very surprised that absolutely no one in my life was surprised by any of that. Like, other than my parents, who were like, what is Instagram?
I was surprised at first.
Oh, okay.
I was a little surprised.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. I mean, like, I wouldn't have been surprised by the book because I sort of knew that. But, I mean, not like in a way of like judgment or like this is good or bad, but I was just like, oh, okay. I didn't quite know, you know.
That's cool. That's good feedback.
I mean, I think surprises, like, that's what a joke really is.
Oh, a joke is a surprise.
You have to surprise. If people aren't surprised, it's just...
Is that what I am to you? A joke, Ryan? My life, my passion, my work.
Isn't that what you wanted when you started out?
Yeah,
and then I'm the one person that takes it that way, and you're like, what the fuck?
No, I mean, I did. I started it as a bit, and then, like, the joke's on me. But, yeah, my friends and my coworkers... were just like, oh yeah, no, this makes sense because you like all of these things. And I was like, you knew about that? And they were like, yeah, you're not great at keeping secrets. Like we know you. And like
you like leave your closet door open and there'd be a bunch of like,
they'd be like, you know,
handmade, like,
you own like 5 wedding dresses. Like what's that about? And I'd be like, oh, they're just pretty and I like them. I don't know. It's weird.
And they're all from like 200 years ago.
They're not from 200
or they're in the
ago.
style of I'm just making things up. I don't know if there are, but so yeah, speaking of that, so you would tell me about when you started stand up and what was that like and how that plays into your...
Oh, I mean,
should have been like 15 years ago or something.
I think the first time, okay, so like one, there's something wrong with my brain. And I do not experience stage fright at all.
Oh, really?
I never have.
Wow.
I never feel...
It's like a 1%er type thing.
I can tell you exactly why it happened. I was in kindergarten and my mom volunteered me to give a presentation to the school board about the kindergarten classroom iguana, because there was a great debate happening in Waynesville public schools about whether or not the children should be allowed to have an iguana in the classroom.
Because it might be mean to the iguana?
I don't know. But my mom was like, my child will talk to you about her relationship to the iguana. And so we went to the public library down into the basement, and there was like a little stage and a microphone. And my mom was like, go get up and tell them about the iguana. And I was like, okay.
Did you practice before?
No.
Just like riffing on the iguana?
No prep. And my mother treated it like it was the most normal thing in the world. She didn't hype it up. She did not introduce the concept of fear.
Yeah.
And so she was just like, go tell them. And I just went, dude, I like the iguana. Its name is Iggy, and you know, we get to take it home, and I took it home, and it lives in a cage, and I don't know, I'm 6. Like, what do I know about iguanas? The school board like asked some questions, and I was like, I don't know.
Did you get any laughs? Do you remember any?
I don't remember if I got any laughs.
It wasn't about that.
But yeah, and then we just like got in the car and went home, and it wasn't like, whoa, we go out for ice cream afterwards. It was not treated as a special experience. And as a result, I never feel more calm or in control than when I am on stage with a microphone and everyone is looking at me.
Huh.
There is something wrong with my brain.
That's cool, though. I'm like slowly getting there.
Yeah.
Over like a decade or decades of like trying to, but yeah.
But yeah, so that manifested in like middle school as like going to like open mic poetry readings and reading terrible middle school era poetry.
That's great, though.
Yeah.
I support that.
Yeah. And like growing up adjacent.
I don't want to live in a world where middle schoolers aren't getting up and doing horrible poetry.
Oh my God. I love it. I live for
I'm
the
still doing a version
juvenilia.
of that.
Yeah, we all are.
I think it's hard to age well with it too, honestly. That's like a great time for it. Like we all agree middle schoolers should be
and they have them
embarrassing themselves.
Their emotions are so potent and close to the surface and yet grounded in such nonsense. And that's poetry, you know? That's the heart of poetry. So I would say that the first time I did stand-up was on accident. I went with Clark. We went to Firestorm, the anarchist book / coffee shop place back when it was like in that basement.
Yeah.
And they were having an open mic. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get up and like do some like spoken word and like classic me, flashy first drafts. I was like, I don't need to write any of this down. I'm just going to like stand up and like talk about my mom. And oh no, I didn't talk about my mom. Well, I started with my mom. And then I talked about this like raisin, how there's like a raisin at the bottom of like the little box of raisins and you can never get it out. And then when you do finally get it out, it's like the worst raisin in the box. It's all like dry and terrible. And that's like a metaphor for life. And I thought that was so fucking deep. I was like, I'm about to blow these people's minds. And then everybody laughed at me like multiple times through this delivery. And I was just like, this is pretty cool.
Maybe this is comedy.
Okay. And then I got off stage and the host was like, wow, what a fun like comedy set from that person. Now let's get back to like anarchist poetry. But like that was fun. And I was like, I guess I do stand-up comedy now. And so I started just like going to open mics around like UNC Asheville, because Clark was always being asked to like host them, because he's like super charismatic and plays the guitar. And they were like, you there, charismatic man, would you like to be in charge of this?
Are you sure he's not the quietest, shyest guy of all time?
Oh my God, have you never seen Clark with a microphone and a guitar?
I have heard him play guitar. He plays well. I just saw like a video a long time ago of him busking, and I was like, oh, he can play. Oh. You should arrange for Clark to have a microphone and a guitar. It's pretty magical. Okay.
And yeah, and I would just go and like, oh my God, some of the stand-up that was being done on UNC Asheville's campus was like, hey guys, you know that stand-up is not a replacement for therapy, right? Like this is not an appropriate place to like work through your issues with your ex-wife.
Yeah, that's the bit
also,
that never
this is
dies.
A college campus. Like, we're all like 18. We're here because we can't legally drink in public. Like, this is like a school-sponsored event. You're like some 40-year-old guy who's just like yelling about wanting to like murder your wife. Like, what's that about?
Oh, there were people that came from. Okay, yeah.
I don't know where that guy came from.
Yeah, there's the idea of like corporate and college gigs, and I'm just like, I cannot imagine a worse fit for like me at this point, like standing before that age group and being like, hey, my kids,
what's up, youth of America?
So there's
how
like,
about that?
There were like angry like middle-aged men coming. Yeah. So it's like one of them might kind of spice up the night a little, just because you can like, judge exactly how bad it can.
Yeah,
that can be.
I don't know. And you know, Clark's a nice guy, and you know, you couldn't get these dudes off stage. I don't know. There were a lot of kerfuffles around that. But so yeah, I would just do stand-up then. But my disconnect with stand-up is that I don't like it's not that I don't like, it's that I've never been able to commit to the repetition of it. I have so much respect, and I stand in awe of the way that you do stand-up just relentlessly, like 950 shows or something, just like over and over again. It doesn't make any sense to me, because for me, stand-up is like I spend like 6 months kind of like in my head like thinking about a thing and like, oh, it's kind of funny, and like I refine it, and I have like the little notes app on my phone, and then I'm like, okay, I got like a tight 5, and I go to an open mic and I say it out loud in front of people, and then they laugh, and I'm like, great, it was funny.
Yeah, that's probably like a healthier way to do it, honestly. Like, because what is the goal of? I
was going to ask you, like, what? How do you get up and say the same things? Like, what are you looking for? Like, I mean, what's that about? Everyone does it. They say that that's how you're supposed to do it, and like, I just don't understand.
I mean, it's still like I still think like at 15 years I'll be like I'm at 9, so it's like a work in progress. But I guess now I would say at the mics I do try to do more of like speaking extemporaneously, and this podcast is an attempt to get more into speaking off the cuff and not being prepared and memorized. But then when I do a show out of town, I will try to do like my 20 or whatever that I feel like is the tightest. And but then I do feel sometimes that if I've told the joke for like too many times, that it's not authentically tied to my emotions, and they pick up on it, and it's not good. You know, that's the thing about the middle schoolers doing poetry, is like, in one way, it's just seeing someone up there that's experiencing a lot of intense feelings inside is very compelling. So if you get too robotic, that's gone. So yeah, I don't know. It's like, I'm trying to drift more into being more like that, but not waiting 6 months, but being like,
and that's the other thing.
What happened today? What happened this week? And just getting up and doing it, but then filming it, but then also trying to go back and like with the book, it's the 3 month, but then go back and go, okay, I think I got something here. And I actually had this joke from 6 months ago that never quite connected with anything, and try to like,
maybe I can like fit it in there.
And that's the songwriting thing where I really do enjoy sitting down and like crafting, like, okay, I had that chorus from last year and I got a bridge, and then I don't like that line, and then the immediacy of whether they laugh or not, and that kind of, whereas songwriting was like, I'm alone in my room and I think it's great, but you never even know if anybody else likes it, whereas with stand-up you got that like immediacy,
the immediate feedback.
They edit you.
I think that for me it's that feedback that I'm so afraid of a little bit, that keeps me from the iterative process, and that's why I go like 3 to 6 months between each thing. And I never, like I would never consider myself part of any stand-up scene. I am just like a person who like comes in sometimes and is like, do you also think that this is funny?
And you serve we have those in our scene too. And it's always like, oh, cool, Grace is here tonight. This is going to be, but you live as an artist. So it's like you're writing books, you're doing the Instagram stuff. And then that's like another piece to it. So I think that's totally cool, because it's really all just one thing. So it's, even if you only go 6 months between stand-up sets, I bet you've created other things in that time.
Oh yeah, I'm always making something.
When you're on your deathbed, it's just this body of work, and it's like stand-up's the thing I've kind of chosen to try to grind, and a lot of that's for like social reasons or whatever. But
you were talking in one of your episodes about how stand-up is the thing that you do for yourself.
Yeah,
and I think that is so cool. And like honestly, not to get all like sentimental, but like I have a deep love and reverence for both you and Emily, because I feel like you were the first adults that I met, like you and like Gavin and Casey and like Craig and Shan. You were adults who like had jobs and mortgages and eventually children, and you kept making art and you prioritized your art. And it showed me that like you didn't have to be like super chaotic and dysfunctional to like put out an album or, paint something amazing or pursue a stand-up career. Like you can do all of that for yourself and also be like a happy, balanced, probably pretty good parent. Like, I don't know.
I think I'm all right. Thank you. That's like the ultimate compliment, because the narcissism thing I see tongue in cheek, like half of me is making that joke because I do know there's family members on Facebook that'll see a stand-up reel and be like, he should be at home with his kids, So it's like, I have to kind of keep telling myself I am being a good dad by being
a person.
Like I'm not just a career dad. When you grow old and have kids, maybe you'll still have a dream.
Yeah.
And it's not about being famous at the end of it. It's about like staying.
It's about making art. It's about like having a voice and connecting with other people over like a shared vision. And like, that was hugely inspirational to me, just like in my life. I feel like I am who I am.
That's like all the validation I've ever wanted from
my
dad, which I'll never get. So I'll take it from you.
I'm here to tell you made a difference in the life of a young person. That was just so big for me. It remains so big for me. And like, I'm really glad that you're doing that. You're probably showing a lot of people in Asheville and the world at large that like you can have it all.
Yeah, I love that. That's like the scene is, talking about like the Russian books and the family is one character. And the Asheville scene is almost like a beehive when you zoom out. It's like one organism, and you have the people that come in every 6 months and say something really poignant. And then you have people that just live on the brink of insanity and they just get up and it's like so compelling to hear them. And then they're gone for 3 months because they're back in the hospital or whatever. And then they come out and they fucking murder and you have to follow them with your 3 times a week that you've worked on. You can't do it because it's just too real
because they're on fire.
But it's the consistency is not there, and it's like we all, I'm kind of more of like the dad with the podcast, and for me like the 3 times a week is just part of my being more of like I don't have the luxury of, if I only did it when I felt like it, I would never do it too. Like if I don't set the intention of like I'm gonna do it
writing,
because I never feel like it.
I'm
always tired. I'm always old at night. I don't feel like going out.
You're always old at night.
More so each time. But then when I come back, like 9 times out of 10, like I come skipping down the walkway. Like I went out, I just like did a thing that was, whether it went good or bad, I was like connected with the community.
To create.
Yeah. And be in a room with just that many different brains, you know, like somebody, my friend who's like trans and 23, my friend who's like 60 years old and talking about grandkids. And it's like, we're all part of this like honeybee experience. It's like, there's just something so rejuvenating about that. Like it's a feedback loop that then you bring that home and there's some drama with a kid, but there's a sustaining.
Yeah, it's life-giving. It sustains you as a person. And yeah, I think it's also like very important in parenthood to like retain a sense of individuality. Now I do have a question for you. Your children are getting older. Are you concerned that they're going to look up and discover your like backlog, your stand-up? Are you afraid that your kids might not be fans of your stand-up?
I try and I don't need them to be fans or enjoy it, but I try not to have anything out there that I couldn't stand by. Like I guess there's like one bit where I go like, I read a book called Parenting a Child with Intense Emotions because you can't sell a book called Parenting an Asshole. And I haven't put that one on the internet yet. You know, I'm like, but I still feel like in my heart, it's just how not everything I say is true, but it's like, that's a real feeling because I love them. So, you know, I don't want, like, I don't get up and be like my fucking wife or whatever.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah. I can't stand that kind of comedy where it's
and
like,
usually
that's
it's just
wife.
hack anyway. Yeah. Or it's like, yeah, you just like lose trust in the speaker because they're like they don't have integrity.
Nobody wants to clap for the guy who's like, I hate my kids.
Yeah.
It's like, yikes, go to therapy.
Yeah. So I feel like all my videos, I could stand by anything I said or at least explain it, or it's like, it's okay to be a complicated person with multitudes who, you know, a lot of it is about exaggerating the feelings. But then I also think complaining about your kids and stuff can be so hack too, you know, that it's just like, oh, kids are annoying. It's like, who hasn't said that 1,000 times into a microphone? But yeah, I feel, I don't know. Have you seen anything where you felt like, ooh, if I heard my dad say that, I'd be like,
no, but like, I don't know. I guess for me, the comparison is that like, I've posed for nude photographs with a number of photographers, and it's always like, yeah, I guess this could like come back and bite me if I don't know, if I like married a senator or something. But like, I stand by everything that I've done as art.
Yeah. And there's a difference between like a sex tape and a nude photo.
A tasteful portrait.
And then even the more risky of the two, it's like, in this day and age,
well, yeah, I mean, and then at that point,
people
it's
are like, oh, she's a person with like crazy shit happens. Like that, I like that. It's kind of like the comedy where you're kind of like unhinged up there. People go, I feel that way sometimes. I actually kind of relate to the humanity of that.
I mean, like Gen Z, like the first Gen Z president that we're gonna have will have like, you know, leaked. All kinds of because like we gave teenagers cell phones. What do you expect?
And every single person that's like voting will, not every single one, but a lot of them will have that too and be like, that's me up there, and it plays to the narcissism.
Where it's like oh yeah, I sent a regrettable dick pic when I was 17. Like it happens.
But so that's like a category of mistakes, which I think, you know, is also fine. But I think what you said about it, standing by it as being art, that's the way I try to look at my stand-up. But then there will be times where I might go back. I'm like, oh, you know, I've evolved a lot in the last 5 years. I'm going to take that one down because I've noticed just being in the room with the young people and hearing the ideas has made me like recalibrate and be more sensitive. Like I'm getting more and more aware of like how privileged I am and how narrow my cultural experience has been, stuff like that. So I'm open to like taking things down, but I think, you know, if my kid was like, that really bothered me and we had a nice conversation about it, that almost seems better to me than if it didn't come up and we didn't have.
That's a great way to look at that.
Like it's like, it's not something I go say to other people and not to them. It's like, let's do on the other side of that tough conversation. Like I'm willing to apologize and be humble. And then on the other side of that, maybe it's even better, you know? So even the fuck ups are good.
I like it. I like
say
that
now,
attitude.
but there might be some event in the future that I'm like, didn't foresee that.
I just like to playfully imagine a world in which your children just don't think you're funny.
Yeah, well,
and they're just like,
Well,
I don't know. I'm more of a, I can't think of a different comedian right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm really more of like a prop comic person.
Well, I don't really think that I'm like real great at stand up or anything either. Like that's part of it is like, so I wouldn't have a problem with anybody saying that at any time. Like I definitely don't think I'm like real great at it. But it is sweet that like I tell them a story at night, like we kind of, and they both 8 and 12 are like, oh, we want to hear the story.
Oh my God, I love
and
that
it's
so
like
much.
the day is probably coming, maybe not, where like they don't want to hear me talk about anything, much less that. So I think that might, if there is going to be like a heartbreaker coming, it might be that, or it's just like...
My dad and I read together every night until I was 15. And it wasn't the fact that I outgrew it. It was that the last book my dad picked was Moby Dick. And when it ended, we were both like, fuck that book. Just like, we're done.
Just like long-windedness or...
I mean, the thing about Moby Dick, I recently reread it.
I haven't read it.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. But like, you don't get that when you're 15. You're like, this is long and boring. And for some reason, there's like an entire chapter that's just an encyclopedia entry about different whales that aren't even in this book. And when you read it as an adult and when you analyze it through like a lens, you're like, oh, this is about like human, consumption, and this is like very political, it's relevant, it's very funny, it's like lightly homoerotic, and also it's long and it's boring and it's punctuated by moments of extreme violence, just like a whaling voyage. It's a very like immersive experience. But at 15 you're like, this is long and it's boring and it's punctuated by gross descriptions of whales being taken apart. Like, ew.
Like if you don't want to have a whaling experience, then
like if you're not,
it's too real.
And so it was a weird choice by my dad, but like that was kind of his thing. He really loved to choose age inappropriate bedtime reading.
See, I try to think of just like a time in my childhood that it was like really like I can do a scene, with like the like touch, smell, taste, not summarizing, but like something that's like vivid. And then I'll try to tell them a new one each night. I can't always think of one. And then if they like it, they can ask for it again where I add lies to it. So then it's like if the ones that they like the most, they'll be like on the sixth draft that is just like completely absurd,
And do they know that it's lies?
We use the word lies.
Okay,
we laugh
that's
at it.
great.
Like,
that's great.
Because I think it's funnier than saying I exaggerate. It's like, and if you like it, just ask me and I'll tell it again and add some lies to it. That's good. It's and then good you take to be it as honest. Far as you can still keep kind of pumping it full of big fish shit or whatever.
That's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah, that's one thing we are doing right. You just wonder, like, I'm like, man, I can't get my kids to like do sports. Like, social relationships are hard, but like, you give them like, we make fucking art. Like, you give them like any sort of, like, we know how to do that. We've definitely taught them to do that, and also that making money off art is probably not,
Oh no, that's not an option.
Like, it's not. But also monetizing it and using it solely for your income can be such a
it drains.
You got to start chasing those.
It can really destroy
soulless gigs. Like, it's all corporate gigs now because those are the ones that corporate clean. That's the only place because those pay thousands, and I can make $50 doing an alt room and saying what I want. It's like,
but you can learn a lot from. I mean, like, I worked in marketing, writing marketing copy for about a decade, and that taught me how to write. It taught me how to sit down at a computer. Whether or not I felt like it. It taught me that most people can't tell the difference between something that I felt really passionate and inspired about and something that I wrote 15 minutes earlier because I forgot that there was a meeting about it today. And when you realize that, you gain the muscle memory and the confidence of like, well, if I don't like it, I can go back and change it. But today, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write because that's what I do every day because that's my job. Yeah,
I love that. And that gives us such an edge in the arts community. It's like being able to send out an email that asks for a gig with correct punctuation and just send like a thank you for having me on. Like, I mean, artists don't do that. So it's the professional job that everybody's so afraid of getting because it's going to kill your art actually helps you. Because you learn this how to interface with the real world and empathize with other people's feelings and hit a deadline, all that stuff. Like, it's weird. Having kids, having a job, that stuff has really helped me prioritize my art more. Whereas I see people just run from that because they think that they're gonna.
Well, I think there's this
you're
idea.
Smoking pot all day and you go out like once a month. Like, what are you?
What are you?
You need the fire of like.
Yeah, I think that there's this idea that art is fragile and that the muse is elusive, and that can be true, but you still have to work at it every single day. Like you can wait for the muse to like arrive.
Yeah.
You're going to be waiting a lot. You're going to spend a lot of your time waiting. Or you can get everything ready. And then when the inspiration strikes, guess what? You got it all set up. You've got a routine. You've got, you know what you're doing. And I do think that for me anyway, sanity is only achievable when I am being creative and productive in my creativity every single day. Otherwise I just go insane, and then it's like, well, I'm no good to anybody.
Yeah, same. And I still don't know if I think everyone's like that or not. I know I am, and you are, that like you have to, if you're not creating, you're not healthy. And I'm like, the people that don't do creative stuff, are they a different type of person, or are they like
I don't
not
know.
as well as they could be? But I'm also putting what's worked for me onto them. But I am curious about that, because it seems like with kids, you can give any kid like a box of crayons and they'll likely do it. But then at some age, people go, oh, I don't draw good. I don't want the judgment starts to creep in, you know, and you just start shitting on other people's stuff on the internet.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is judgment. And that's something that I've had to be really mindful about, is like not judging other people's work, because it makes me feel safer to create riskier things, to do things that I'm not good at. You know, when I apply a kinder lens to the way that I view the world, I assume that other people are also being kind. Are they? Probably not. People are terrible. But
but it's your truth.
Yeah.
But what about in like school? Did you have to critique each other's stories for the creative writing?
Yes, but I mean, one, I was part of a small program at UNC Asheville, which is a great school that I loved going to and was absolutely the right choice for me. But it's not, you know, it wasn't like the greatest creative writing program and like the most selective. So like I can't speak to every creative writing program, but we were a small department at a small school, and we were taught from like day one of like, here is how you critique someone. You say something nice first. Yeah. Then you say what you mean. And then you follow it up with something nice. Yeah. And, you know, you want to bring that kindness. And that was enforced. Like, and it was a culture of that being enforced.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
The shit sandwich, that's encouraging.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So
I wish we'd do that more in stand-up, honestly. Just like because we're all seeing things that the person talking is missing, but I never feel like I should give unsolicited advice to anyone.
Oh, I was going to ask, I was like, so what? Like somebody comes off stage and you're like, that was garbage.
Yeah, well, it's like, here's what I like about you. This is a thing that you should not stop doing, in my opinion. This felt a little, you know, and then another good one maybe, or even just like one of each. Like I did a Toastmasters speaking group before, because I'm not like you, where I was comfortable with a microphone in my hand.
I remember when you started Toastmasters.
So yeah, I had to just speak before really encouraging elderly people, where we did what you just said for like about a year or two before I was even comfortable going into the bars for the maniacs, you know. But I do miss that, like the critique built in.
Is there a way for you to like build a group in Asheville to do something like that?
Yeah, I think they do have like a thing on Wednesdays where they critique. I'm kind of now, I'm just sort of like, I'm on my path, and I think it kind of will just course correct.
You just don't want anybody's input. You're like, I know best. I'll give other people advice. Don't talk to me about my stuff.
There's definitely this thing where like a lot of people that have just started and don't know what they're doing say a lot, you know? And then I know that like I'm the archetype of like the middle-aged white guy that is always telling everyone. So I'm very mindful of like trying to, you know, that it's a lot easier to be not good for me. And then the people who maybe I respect the most, who have been doing it longer than me, it feels like all the new comics are like, which of my jokes do you like? How could I do this differently? And it's just like,
I don't know, man, practice.
Yeah, well, fucking leave me alone. So I'm like, I don't want to like queue up more. So it's like, I guess I haven't really found the way, but maybe this podcast sort of fills some of that void, because we are talking about process. And so, you know, at the end of this, I do have a sense of like the things that you like and don't, or, you know, so I think this might kind of fill that void in a less structured way. It's like long form and raw, but it's still kind of satisfying that.
Okay. Yeah. I'll let that count. How long have we been going?
We've been going for an hour and 23 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually 90-ish is like we could stop now.
I mean, like, what I don't have any other questions for you at this time, but like, I'm enjoying this. I feel like I could just talk for a million years.
Me too. It's like, I always feel like at first, but then at some point you get into it. And it
after you get all the Hitler stuff out of the way, it just really flows.
It's in the middle, so you really gotta, be on board for the whole thing. I mean, I was just saying that, like, I think overpopulation is our biggest problem, and that's really the thing that's the worst. And when you say that, if you're not careful, you can sound a little bit like Hitler. But I'm not.
but you're not Hitler.
I'm not. And he was a real piece of shit, by the way. Just a horrible.
I think we should state publicly, directly into the camera, that neither of us have ever or would ever endorse Hitler.
Yeah. He probably did a couple of good things.
Nope.
There's probably like occasional.
I don't think so.
Like, times when he
I'm not saying
bought
that.
The lads a bunch of pilsners.
Don't think so. Nope.
But everybody that's alive is cool. But we got to think about how maybe there's not going to keep being twice as many of us,
Yeah.
And if anything, like, there's too many white people. I don't know. We should probably.
No.
I'll probably just chop it off before this.
Yeah, I said none of this.
Yeah. I don't know. It's, like, I don't do stand up that's like very reckless or
neither do I.
Controversial, But we do, when Emily and I are like do you and your husband ever, like, when it's just the two of you at home and you both know who you really are and you just maybe need to laugh about some shit that, if other people heard it, they would think you're not a good person.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I have those conversations with my husband.
It's kind of like you need it, It's like...
you have to laugh or the terrorists win is kind of like my go-to on that, where it's like everything is fair game in the privacy of one's own home.
Yeah.
And that, like, extends beyond comedy, I would say. Like, I'm very honest with one person, and that person is my husband. But, like, other than that, I'm not saying anything ever. So I don't know. Call me old-fashioned. I love my husband.
You are old-fashioned.
I am old-fashioned. Call me old-fashioned,
I would
but
say
like I am.
You're very progressive too, but like you definitely
that's confusing
have
for
an
people.
Old soul. I don't know if that's too cliche.
No, it's definitely true. I was born an old person.
Yeah, and that's cool.
Yeah, it's worked out. I grew into it.
That's why I like the old books. That's what I'm looking for, because I'm on the internet every day for my job, and I'm like, the fact that there can still be so many things that ring so true. Yeah. It's like, that's like, okay, well, that's really what we are. If it was written 150 years ago, like the jealousy and the lust and all of that, just the family dynamics, like if that still rings true, then that's like really authentically human. Whereas like all the TikToks and stuff, I mean, I just don't, why would I?
I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah.
I took one look at that and was like, that's not going to be good for my brain chemistry. Like, so I got to stay the fuck away from that.
Because I do you look at other people's, do you scroll on other people's? Do you have to limit that?
I have like a few times. I have friends who like do professional work for TikTok and other platforms, and so like occasionally I'll like check out like, or I have friends who will like send me a link to a TikTok, and I see that I say that I get like secondhand TikTok, but I don't think I've spent more than like a collective hour on TikTok total. It just scares the shit out of me, to be honest. Like, I'm scared about what I would learn about myself from the algorithm.
I know.
I don't want to know.
It records you. Yeah, I know.
And it's like, it can like sense things about you and deliver content to you that you don't even know that you want. And like, I don't want to find out. I don't want to find out who I am.
Yeah.
I have a really clear idea of who I am, and I don't need TikTok to undermine that.
Yeah. Well, who are you to you?
Oh, just, a complex figure who likes playing dress up. I'm just a girl who never grew out of playing dress up, and I contain multitudes.
Yeah.
And I love microphones.
Yeah, you seem comfortable. That's good. Sometimes people are like, it's like you got to hold that shit in front of you. Like, it's going to be a nightmare of editing for me, but you've done a great job of holding it.
Well, yeah, that was, I have a friend, my friend Amanda is a burlesque performer, and she was like, you can always tell like the quality of an event by if the MC knows how to use a microphone or not.
Yeah.
And she'll, she performs all over, everywhere, all the time. And that's like, she just knows from like moment one, like, oh, this is about to be a disaster.
Yeah. Like the moment where they take the mic out of the stand and what they do with the stand or not, like that's just, it tells everything.
Oh, yeah. I think for me, because it's just like, have you rehearsed this? Who's working the booth? What's the tech situation? Have you held a microphone before? Do you have, are there monitors? Like, can you hear yourself? Like all of that. It's instant feedback.
Yeah. Cool. Well, should we just end on that note? We're at an hour and a half.
Sure.
Okay.
I have nothing more to say to you.
Well, you should come back on sometime. This is fun.
Yeah. Anytime. Can I plug my book?
Yes, plug your book.
Oh my God.
And we'll put some links down in the description, all that stuff.
My book, Accomplishments and Accomplices, is the first in a trilogy. It is fun. It is a comedy in the style of Jane Austen. So if you like Jane Austen, which I know all of your listeners do,
there's smart people out there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, Jane Austen is a classic for a reason. The biggest problem with Jane Austen is that she gets taught like in schools, and that just ruins everything.
Yeah, right.
And people are like, oh, it's a romance. And it's like, no, Jane Austen doesn't write romances. She writes comedies. Like, these are fucking funny. And if you're reading them, like, looking to fall in love, like, you're wrong. You're doing it wrong. And you're going to be disappointed. And you're going to be like, dude, I didn't. No, it's a comedy. And Accomplishments and Accomplices, available now on Amazon, is a comedy set in the Regency era where they don't have trains, but they do bathe every day.
Ooh.
So...
Well, the link will be down in the description. Get yourself a copy.
You don't have to read it. I would appreciate it if you would buy it.
All right. Thank you for coming, Grace.
Oh my gosh, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.